How do you build the largest moving object on Earth? Before computers, before modern cranes, and before modern safety equipment. How did thousands of workers in a smoky Belfast shipyard create a ship so enormous that people called it unsinkable? Tonight, we're travelling back to the years 1909 to 1912 to witness the construction of the RMS Titanic in full cinematic colour reconstruction. And by the end of this video, you'll understand that Titanic was more than a ship. It was a symbol of an entire civilization at the peak of its confidence, just before disaster shattered the illusion forever. Before the Titanic became the world's most famous shipwreck, it was the greatest engineering project of its age. To modern audiences, it's easy to forget just how unbelievable Titanic seemed in 1912. This was not simply a passenger liner. It was a floating city, longer than most urban blocks, taller than many buildings of its era, powered by machinery so massive it shook the ground beneath the shipyard. And yet the story of Titanic didn't begin at sea. It began in Belfast. At the start of the 20th century, Belfast was one of the industrial houses of the British Empire. Smoke rose endlessly from factories. Steel hammered through the streets. Thousands of workers flooded shipyards every morning before sunrise. And dominating everything was Harland and Wolff, one of the largest shipbuilding companies on Earth. Its shipyard was enormous. Giant steel gantries towered above the skyline like metal cathedrals. Railway lines crisscrossed the docks. Riveting hammers echoed day and night. This was where Titanic would be born. Imagine standing inside the Belfast shipyard in 1909. The noise alone would have been overwhelming. Steam cranes groaned overhead. Molten steel glowed orange in the darkness. Thousands of men shouted across scaffolding hundreds of feet high. There were no laser measurements, no computer simulations, no automated assembly lines. Everything depended on human labour, human strength, human coordination, human precision. And one mistake could kill. Shipbuilding during this era was brutally dangerous. Workers balanced on narrow beams high above the ground. Riveters handled red, hot metal with bare hands. Falling steel plates could crush dozens of men instantly. Yet, despite the danger, Titanic represented opportunity. For many workers, employment at Harland and Wolff meant survival. Entire families depended on the wages earned building ships like this. And by March 1909, construction officially began. The keel of Titanic was laid down beside another enormous vessel, her sister ship, Olympic. Together, they would become the largest ships ever constructed. The project was almost unimaginable in scale. More than 3 million rivets would eventually hold Titanic together. Thousands of steel plates formed her hull. Massive anchors weighing over 15 tons each had to be forged by hand. Even transporting materials to the yard became a logistical challenge. Nothing this large had ever been attempted before. But There was a problem hidden inside Titanic from the very beginning. A problem few people noticed during construction, and one that would later become one of the most debated engineering controversies in history. As Titanic slowly rose from the Belfast docks, the city became obsessed with the ship. Newspapers followed the project constantly. Tourists gathered to watch construction. Workers brought home stories about the gigantic vessel growing beside the River Lagan. And every month, Titanic became more impressive. The hull expanded higher into the sky. Enormous propellers arrived at the docks. The double-bottomed safety design was praised as revolutionary. To many people, Titanic represented the future itself, a future powered by technology, empire and industrial ambition. Building AFLOATI PLSE by 1910. Titanic's steel skeleton dominated Belfast. The ship was so massive that traditional shipyard equipment had to be redesigned specifically for the project. Harland and Wolff even constructed gigantic new gantries, simply to build the Olympic-class liners. Workers nicknamed them the Errol Gantry. It towered nearly 230 feet above the shipyard. For comparison, that was taller than many church spires of the era. Now imagine climbing the scaffolding surrounding Titanic in winter. Freezing wind blowing from the Irish Sea. Steel slick with rain. Hundreds of workers moving across narrow platforms carrying tools and red, hot rivets. One slip could mean death, and accidents were common. Historical records suggest at least 8 workers died during Titanic's construction, though the real number may have been higher. Safety standards during the Edwardian era were extremely limited. Hard hats didn't exist. Harness systems were primitive. Medical support was basic. But despite the danger, work continued relentlessly, because time meant money, and Titanic needed to be finished quickly. The ship itself was designed for luxury unlike anything seen before. First, class passengers would experience grand staircases, Turkish baths, smoking lounges, reading rooms, squash courts, and lavish dining halls inspired by aristocratic European hotels. Titanic was designed to impress the richest people on Earth. Some interiors copied the Palace of Versailles. Others resembled elite London gentlemen's clubs. Every detail communicated wealth and power, but below the luxury decks, another world existed. Deep inside the ship were the boiler rooms. And these spaces looked more like the inside of a factory than a luxury liner. Hundreds of stokers and engineers would work in unbearable heat feeding coal into enormous furnaces 24 hours a day. The engines themselves were gigantic. Titanic consumed roughly 600 tons of coal daily. Think about that for a moment. Every single day, workers had to shovel mountains of coal simply to keep the ship moving. The machinery powering Titanic symbolized the industrial age at full force. Steam, steel, coal, human labor. The modern world running at maximum speed. One of the most incredible sights during construction was the installation of Titanic's funnels. Each funnel was painted in the colours of the White Star Line, buff yellow with black tops. From a distance, they made the ship look almost unreal. 3 of the funnels carried smoke from the boilers, but the 4th funnel, it was largely cosmetic. It existed partly to improve ventilation, and partly because 4 funnels looked more powerful and prestigious. That detail tells you everything about the era. Appearance mattered. Titanic was built not only to function, but to inspire awe. Inside Belfast workshops, craftsmen worked on extraordinary details. Carpenters shaped elegant oak panelling by hand. Electricians installed cutting, edge lighting systems. Metalworkers created intricate chandeliers and decorative railings. More than 3,000 workers contributed to Titanic's construction, and many of them never saw the finished ship sail because the work consumed their lives completely. Some worked 12-hour shifts surrounded by deafening noise. Others developed long-term injuries from repetitive labour, yet pride in the project remained enormous. Workers understood they were building history. And then came the moment everyone had waited for, the launch. But launching Titanic into the water carried terrifying risks, because once a ship this large started moving, stopping it was almost impossible. On May 31st, 1911, Belfast shut down for the event. An estimated 100,000 spectators gathered to witness Titanic's launch. Crowds packed rooftops, bridges, and nearby streets. Factory whistles echoed across the harbour. Excitement spread through the city. Titanic stood towering above the slipway, weighing more than 26,000 tons. And then, shortly after noon, the restraints were released. Slowly at first, the massive ship began sliding toward the water. Workers covered the launch ramps with grease and soap to reduce friction. The sound was thunderous. Steel groaned. Chains snapped free. The crowd roared as Titanic moved toward the river lagoon. In just over a minute, the hull entered the water successfully. The launch was a triumph. But Titanic was still far from complete. THECYMBULIZD after launch, Titanic entered the fitting out phase. This was where the ship transformed from steel structure into luxury liner. Massive engines were installed. Furniture arrived from workshops. Crystal chandeliers, carpets, fine china, and elegant woodwork filled the interiors. Electric elevators were added. Telephones connected rooms. Heating systems improved passenger comfort. For 1912, Titanic felt astonishingly modern. To wealthy travellers, stepping aboard the ship would have felt like entering the future. And yet beneath all the glamour, there were warning signs. Some engineers questioned the quality of certain rivets used during construction. Others worried about the number of lifeboats. But regulations at the time were outdated. Ironically, Titanic actually exceeded the legal lifeboat requirements of the era. The problem was that the laws themselves hadn't kept pace with ship size. Titanic could carry more than 2 200 people. But its lifeboats could hold only around half that number. At the time, many people believed the ship itself was the lifeboat. That confidence would become fatal. In early 1912, Titanic underwent sea trials. The giant liner was tested in open water to evaluate speed, maneuverability, and engine performance. The tests succeeded. Soon after, Titanic sailed from Belfast to Southampton, where passengers and supplies prepared for the maiden voyage. And when people first saw the completed ship, many were stunned into silence. Titanic was beautiful. Its polished decks stretched endlessly. Its interiors glowed with electric light. Its engines represented the pinnacle of industrial engineering. This was the British Empire displaying its technological confidence to the world. Open low, resolute ion. Remember the hidden problem mentioned earlier. The debate over Titanic's construction has lasted for more than a century. Some historians argue certain rivets became brittle in freezing temperatures. Others believe design flaws worsened the damage after the iceberg collision. But perhaps the greatest weakness wasn't in the steel at all. It was human certainty. The belief that technology had conquered nature. That modern engineering had made disaster impossible. Titanic embodied that mindset perfectly. When Titanic departed Southampton on April 10th, 1912, crowds gathered simply to watch it leave port. No one knew they were witnessing history. Passengers waved from railings. Steam billowed from the funnels. Bands played music along the docks. The ship looked invincible. And for a few brief days, it truly seemed like humanity had mastered the impossible. But what makes Titanic's construction story so fascinating today is not only the tragedy, it's the ambition. Everything about the project reflected the spirit of the early 20th century. Nations competing through engineering. Industries expanding at breathtaking speed. Technology transforming daily life faster than society could fully understand. Titanic was built during a world convinced progress would continue forever. Just 2 years later, World War I would shatter that illusion completely. Many of the workers who built Titanic would soon find themselves in trenches across Europe. The age of elegance and optimism was ending, and in many ways, Titanic became the symbol of that lost world. Today, almost nothing remains of the original shipyard atmosphere. The roaring furnaces are silent. The giant gantries are gone. Most of the workers' names have been forgotten. But through reconstruction, photographs, and surviving records, we can still glimpse those extraordinary years when thousands of ordinary people came together to build the most famous ship in history, not with computers, not with automation, but with coal smoke, steel, sweat, and human hands. Because before Titanic became a tragedy, it was a dream forged in the shipyards of Belfast between 1909 and 1912. And for one brief moment, it represented the absolute peak of human ambition.